day and night. We just got one text for you today. One text, one scripture. John 10:10. Just simply says, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. And I came that you may have life and have it abundantly. Repeat after me. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of God, it stands forever. You may be seated in the presence of God. If I had to put a tag on the text, I would always do it as the sheep, a thief, and the shepherd. The sheep, a thief, and the shepherd. There were two store owners. They were in competition against each other. Each one wanted to beat each other in the number of customers, sales, money, and whatnot. So one of the store owners was sitting there one night, and he was in a sleep, in a daze. He began to have a dream. And in his dream, all of a sudden, an angel appeared to him. Because in his dream, he was wondering, how can I beat my competitor? I want to make sure that I'm doing better than him. I want to make sure I'm beating him. I have more sales. I have more of everything than he does. So he was thinking about how he could do that. And in the dream, an angel showed up and appeared to him. The angel appeared and he says, you know what? You can have anything you desire. Tell me what you would like and I'll be able to grant it to you in his dream. And he started to think for a moment. He says, but. The angel says, but hold up for one moment. He says, whatever you wish for, whatever you desire, I'm going to give it to you, but I'm going to double it for your competitor. He started to think for a minute. He says, the angel says, so if you ask me for $1 million, your competitor will get $2 million. And if you ask me to be rich and wealthy, he will be doubly rich and wealthy. If you ask me to give you more customers, he will get twice as many customers as you get. So if you ask me to be profitable, he's going to be doubly profitable than you. So he began to think. He was thinking, well, what could I ask for against him that would help me defeat him and beat him? So he turned to the angel after much thinking and much malign. He said, okay, make me blind in one eye so that my competitor can be blind in both. He was just trying to say, I wanted to win. He was trying to say, I'm better than him. Let me beat him. And when we get to this text, guess what? It has to do with a comparison that was taking place. The comparison had to be between the shepherd and the thief. So we get to the text, and Christ began to talk to them, and he's telling them about, hey, let me tell you what a thief and how a thief will treat you and how he will come to you, and let me tell you how the shepherd will treat you. So there was a comparison that was taking place. He was trying to tell them the thief, way he will treat you, and the way the shepherd will treat you. And he's going to tell them, I'm going to do way better. I'm going to treat you way better than the thief could possibly do in your life. And he was saying, you guys are the sheep. You guys are the ones in which this is going to happen to, and I want you to know the difference that is going to take place. And he was trying to make a comparison between the two. So we get to the text, and the text tells us there's a comparison that's taking place. And the comparison is between the thief, and the comparison is between the shepherd. And who is in the middle? The sheep. And so he began to tell them, he says, I want you to know, no matter what takes place in your life, here's what's going to happen at some point. There's going to be these things taking place, and he's going to tell them. And this text right here sums up the difference that takes place. First, let me tell you about the sheep. We all know sheep. There's three things about them. They said they're dumb, defenseless, and directionless. They have no direction, they have no defense mechanism, and they simply have no knowledge. And I started to think about us. We are simply like sheep. We don't have the knowledge to necessarily do the things we want to do or we think we know, and we try to act as if we know. But we really don't have the knowledge that we have. And what happens is we'll end up following the other sheep. And then we end up wandering, getting separated from the pack, and the enemy will take advantage of that. So you and I have to be careful that we understand where we're located, we understand the voice of the shepherd, so that we can stay where God wants us to stay. And so often we wander off, do things on our own, and we're not in the will and in the presence of God. And when we're not, we become sheep that are vulnerable. We become sheep that are out of place, all because we think we know so much. Listen, I'm going to give you an example. I saw on the news, I don't know if you saw this or not, but they caught this lady who had gotten arrested for doing fake sign language. Yeah, you seen it? She did fake sign language. She was on national news doing fake sign language, and everybody was believing her. Matter of fact, when I saw it, I'm watching her doing the fake sign language and trying to she was tricking everyone to believe what she was saying was true. Matter of fact, she got up there saying the horse ran over and he jumped over and he was skipping. And I was looking, I said, she's good, she's good. I'm watching her, and you know what? She fooled me. Why? Because I didn't know any better. I didn't have the knowledge to tell you if it was right or wrong. So when she was doing it, all I could see was it looked good to me. And that's the way sheep are. Sheep will then just follow and just do what everyone else is doing because we don't have the knowledge to know any difference. She got away with this thing, and it was later that they caught her. See, we like sheep, we go astray. We don't necessarily know what it is that we need to know, and so we'll end up following other sheep, and we'll go right over the cliff. I read about a gentleman who had sheep. He was watching over sheep for not only him, but some of the other people that were around, and he had a community of sheep, and what happened was one sheep ran over the cliff. And when one ran over, another ran over, and another ran over. They said he had 1,000 sheep, and 400 ran over the cliff following other sheep. That's exactly how we behave sometimes. In our lives, we find ourselves following other people that will take us to our destruction and cause us to fall and get off our game because we're following people who have no knowledge, who are just not as smart as we are, they're the same level as us, and we seem to somehow think that they have it going on. They know what to do. But we have to understand that we get our cues and we get our knowledge from God. We have to understand that God is the one that gives us everything we need because we have no defense mechanism against the enemy. If you want to be truthful, you and I cannot stop the enemy from doing whatever he wants to do in our life. He can touch us at any moment, but we're so grateful that he has to get permission from God to be able to do it. He can't simply come up and touch you. It has to be given by God to be able to interact and do something into your life because we have no defense mechanism against him. And sheep have none either. This is why he said they're dumb, he said they're defenseless, and they're directionless. We don't even have direction of knowing where we're going. I was watching one of the reels. You know, I like to watch those little reels. And in the reel, the sheep, they showed a sheep that had gotten into some water that had went into a ditch. And the shepherd comes, and he gets the sheep out of the ditch, pushes him up, and you know what the sheep does? Goes down 3 feet and go right back into the ditch. I said, man, this sheep should know better than that. They don't have direction. And we can't find direction because we're getting our cues from other people instead of getting them from God. And if we get our cues from God, that gives us direction. And when God gives you a direction, he calls for your participation and he increases your imagination. So when God gives you the direction you need, all of a sudden you're going to find that you know where you need to go because you're coming in and getting it from God. And now God's going to enlist you to come and participate. And then he's going to expand your imagination into thinking and doing things that you thought were virtually impossible. This is how God uses us to move us beyond where we are. And in the text, he's saying, I want you to understand that they're coming after the sheep. The shepherd is coming after the sheep. The thief is coming after the sheep. And the thief, definitely what he wants to do is isolate you and scatter you away from each other so that then he can pick you off and then take you where he needs to go. Because, remember, we're dumb, we're defenseless, and we have no direction. And so what he does is he's got to somehow create some chaos into your life that will cause you and push you and put you away from everyone else so that you don't have any type of way that you can defend yourself from the enemy. And so right here in the text, he tells him, this is what the thief wants to do. The thief wants to get a hold of you, and he wants to grab you, and he wants to take you off. And we as sheep, we need to understand that all we need to do is stay with God. All we need to do is be right there with God. And then you'll find out life is much easier because God is the one that's giving you your cues. God is the one that's giving you your direction. God is the one that's giving you your knowledge. See, God is the one that's protecting you and providing. When God does all of that, then all you and I can do is just sit back and relax because we're in the right pasture that we're supposed to be in. And so when we're there, all we can do then is sit up and wave our hands and enjoy ourselves because we know where we're supposed to be. Let me give you an example of this. I was looking on the news, and it showed a gentleman there that he was going to conduct an orchestra, and he was going to be the the dummy conductor. I guess he was a celebrity, the celebrity conductor. And so as the celebrity, he was going to get in front of the orchestra and he was going to conduct it. And he was just going to wave his hands and do like this. And he was saying, I never conducted an orchestra before. I didn't know what I was doing. And all I was doing was going to just simply wave my hands around. He said, that's all I knew to do. And they told me how to go up and down and left and right. And he said, I learned those movements, that all that I need to do, because that's what I seen them do. So he said, I would just mimic the same thing. And they said, hey, we want you to know that you can just wave your hands however you want. You know why? Because to your right, we're going to have the original conductor. And they're going to sit there, and the stage people are going to be looking at him. They're going to be looking at her. So they're going to be watching her and her movement and what she needs to do. And all you got to do is just stand and just look pretty. All you got to do is just stand and wave your hands. That's all you got to do, because they're going to be taking their cues from there right over here. So he said, it made it so much easier when all I had to do was stand and wave my hands and didn't have to worry about anything. And as sheep, you and I, we need to understand that all we have to do is when God has direction for our life, when God has the knowledge we need, when God's given us everything that's possible, all you got to do is just sit there and wave your hands and stand like you're doing something, but really God is taking control. When you just stand and wave your hands and let God do all that he has to do, that's all you have to do as sheep. And we have to understand, that's all we have to do. And the battle here was over you and I. That's the battle. And the battle today is still over you and I. And we have to understand that's the battle that is taking place. So he says, okay, sheep, you know how you are. You know what you do. You know how you behave. Now let me tell you what's going to happen. He says in the text, he says, the enemy, right here, he says in the text, the thief, what does he do? The thief comes to steal. And so what I need you to understand, when a thief is someone who's going to take something that doesn't belong to them. So his job is to take from you what belongs to you and extract it from you. So he is to take something that doesn't belong to him and now brings it into his possession. And it says, the text says, I love the text, because the text says he comes, which means it's Arab's meaning, it comes at a snapshot in time. In other words, the thief is going to show up in your life at different moments with the objective to steal, kill, and destroy. So he's going to show up at different times in your life ready to steal, kill, and destroy. Meaning he's sitting up waiting for you and I to slip up so that he can steal, kill, and destroy. So when the thief comes, he says, I want you to know he's coming. It's not that if he's going to come, The question is when he's going to come. And a lot of us sheep, we tend to think we're not vulnerable to the enemy. We tend to think we got certain areas under control in our life, and there's no way he can attack me right here. Why? Because I've got this thing locked down. No, you don't. If he set it up just right, it'll make us all fall. If he set it up just perfectly. So this is why you and I have to constantly stay on guard, because we never know how he's going to show up. The text simply says that he's going to come, and he's going to pick a time, and he's going to pick a place that works for him. And when he does, he's going to jump on us for the very reason to steal, kill, and destroy. To take something that doesn't belong to him and to rip it from your hands. Now, why would he do that? Why would he do that? The first one says he's going to take it and he's going to steal. What he's trying to take from you in the text, the author references that he's trying to take your spirit right here. What he's trying to do is remove all the joy and the peace and the love that you would have in your life, the attributes of God, and rip them right out of your soul. So what he's taking from you is possibly things like this. Let me give it to you something a little closer. He want to take away relationships maybe that you have and strip you of them so that you won't have joy and peace and you won't have your spirit anymore, because those relationships have been ripped from you. So he'll take something like a marriage away from you, which may have given you joy. Some of you may say, well, that wasn't joyous, but that was the thing that God had set up. And so he will strip these things away from you, a job that you may enjoy, that you may find love, that you love or be a part of, relationships, marriages. He will take these things and try to take them from you so that your soul will be left abandoned and your spirit will be ripped from you. He wants to take the very thing in which God has designed for you to grab strength from, and he strips it from your life so that he can steal it from you and rip you of everything that you have. And so what we'll do as sheep, this is how we are. We'll be grazing in our own land, grazing in our own pasture. And so that's so important that you find the pasture that God would have you in so that you would know exactly where you need to be. And as sheep, we'll find ourselves grazing in the pasture that God has us, and we will think the grass is greener over there. We will think somehow that pasture is better than the one God has you in. And what you'll do is you'll abandon where you're at, and you'll go right over there. You'll leave this relationship, this situation that God has already ordained for you, and go to something else that you somehow think is better. And when the enemy sets that up, he's already ripped you from the very thing that he's trying to do. See, he's taken away what it is that you once had, and now you find it gone. And what happens is you're now separated from the other sheep. You don't come to church anymore. You find yourself wandering around out there. Why? Because you're now saying the relationship is messed up. I blew it with my family, my kids, and all of these things. And then all of a sudden, you now find yourself soulless and spiritless. Oh, I know it's the truth. I know it's the truth. You don't have to say a word on it, because I've seen it happen over and over again. And this is what he's trying to do to your life, and he's starting with the family, because if he can disrupt the family, he understands. And he wants to tear the family apart, either break up the relationship with the kids and you and a relationship with brothers, sisters, all of that. Why? Because you got to get the family. And so then you'll find yourself without a family, separated from a family, and he's done his job. He's sitting there going, it worked. He got you in another pasture that you don't need to be in. You find yourself over there, and then all of a sudden you have no strength. You have no love, no peace, no joy, and you're still trying to find it with somebody new. And it don't work. And it don't work, because that's not what God had originally set up for you. And so what we end up, you cannot be trying to graze in other pastures. You got to stay in the one that God has put you in. And if you stay in that one, then he can't steal from you, because God is protecting you. See, and if God is protecting you, then you got the shepherd there watching over, making sure that nobody comes in to steal what he has already ordained and put together. Now, you as sheep got to play your part. And God has called you to participate, see. And you got to play your part by staying where you're supposed to be. Or else the enemy will take and rip from you, and you'll find yourself weak, and you'll find yourself abandoned, you'll find yourself alone, and you won't even recognize it. Oh, if you don't believe me, let me bring up somebody called by the name of Samson. You can remember he had a woman by the name of Delilah. You remember the story. He had that long hair. That long hair was his strength. That was his power. That was where everything was at located. And what did she do? She stole that from him. And when she did, you know the story. What happened to Samson? You find himself, the story shows he was alone, shackled between two stone walls, begging God, let me just get a little strength, a little power to take down my enemy with me. And that's where you'll find yourself. That's what the goal of the thief is. It is to rip you and steal you of everything that he has given you in your life. That's his job. That's what he wants to do. And so he's trying to contrast here the idea between the thief and the idea between the shepherd. He says, hey, I want you to know, the thief comes with the sole purpose of steal. Then he says, to kill. He says, listen right here, to take away your vision, your potential. He says what he wants to kill is your vision. It's not you per se. See, you'll take that text and say, well, he's trying to kill me. No. He wants to kill your vision. He wants to kill your potential. He wants to kill your plans. See, he wants to rip all of that and take that away from you. He wants to take away your imagination. The ideal in the text says he'll bring you to slaughter as a sacrifice. So he wants to take you and absolutely sacrifice you or get you to sacrifice yourself to something else. So he wants you then to come with the idea or the concept that you're going to now serve something else. So his goal is to get you away from God so that then you will sacrifice everything you have to get to something that makes no sense. So you and I will find ourselves no longer participating with God. And so when he does that, he takes us off our game, off the potential that God would have us, and he would bring you down to his level. That's the goal. So when he kills you, he's not just trying to simply kill you into death. No. He's not trying to do that. What he's trying to do is kill off everything that God would have for you. Every plan that God has set up for you, all the potential that God has seen in you, all the vision that God would give you. And so he wants you to establish your own. Get your own plan, your own potential, set it up your own way. So that then you can sacrifice everything that God is going to do for you, and so that then you become leaving up here to come down here. So he's got to get you off your loft, off your game up here with God. And a lot of us will leave what God has given to us all because a bait has been set up. Then we find ourselves all of a sudden trapped into being someplace else that God has not set up and is not part of the plan and vision that God would have for your life. All because you see a bait that you think is somehow better and you want to swoop down and get it. And when you do, you find yourself trapped and clawed up, and then you can't get out. You know how they catch eagles? You know how they catch eagles? They can't simply go up there where the eagle is and catch them. No, that's too hard. I'm not climbing that mountain that high on the edge of a cliff trying to catch no eagle. No. You know what they do is they place bait out in the water. And when they place bait out in the water, they put a little round loop on it. And then when the eagle comes down to grab the bait, the loop snatches his claws. And then from there, the eagle is caught and can't go up. The eagle won't let go of the bait. He just simply keeps flapping his wings. And they catch an eagle just like that. So they want to put him into a snare. And what happens is the enemy says, I want to kill you. I want you to get you off your game. See, I want you to come down from your loft where God has put you. I know that God has elevated you to live as an eagle, to fly among the eagles. But what I need to do, the enemy said, is I got to get you somehow to down here with the ducks. And so I got to get you to walk like a duck, talk like a duck, so everybody say, you a duck. You're not an eagle. And then you're sitting up quacking, and then he's got you exactly, and he's killed off everything that God would have for you. He's killed off where God is going to take you, how God is going to elevate you, where God is going to place you. All of that has been destroyed, and he did his job. And he's trying to tell them, he said, listen, I got to let you know how the thief wants to come into your life and what he wants to take from you. He says the thief, he's going to show up all points in your life, and he's going to show up from the time you're 2 years old to the time you're 92. He's going to always showing up, always popping up, always trying to get you down, always trying to steal, always trying to kill. And then he says that he's going to let you know he's always trying to destroy. What is he trying to destroy here? He's trying to bring you to your destruction or ruin. And listen, in the text, he says he's trying to get you to where you destroy yourself. It is not where he's trying to destroy. He's trying to get you to destroy yourself. Kill yourself off. See, he's trying to get you to where you're saying, I've had enough. I can't take this no more. I'm done. You're trying to kill yourself. He is not trying to do it. He could wipe us out if he wants to. He has way more power than us. You got to understand that. So with that, if that's being said, then how is it he's going to get us? He wants you to kill you. And he wants you to kill you by you trying to kill something else. While you're trying to kill something else, he's saying, I'm going to get you. Okay. So in the destruction, he says, we got to bring you to your ruin. And got to get you to where you're falling down like the walls of Jericho have then just simply fall down. He says, I got to get you to where you destroy yourself. And how do you do it? By bringing up to where you're so angry, you're so mad, you're trying to destroy somebody else. And when you're trying to destroy somebody else, in the process, you're going to destroy yourself. Okay. If you don't believe me, I'll bring up an example for you. You guys remember somebody by the name of Haman and Mordecai in the book of Esther. Haman didn't like Mordecai, was upset with Mordecai, angry with Mordecai. You know, he made his life goal to destroy Mordecai. Now, what he did was, he was doing all kinds of things to just say, point the finger and destroy Mordecai. And one of the things Haman did, he says, I'm going to kill this guy, I'm going to get rid of him, and I'm going to build this big old thing, and I'm going to hang him from it. He built it too. Had a noose up there that he was going to hang him from it. Mordecai had flipped that thing around. The very thing that Haman built to kill Mordecai was the very thing that was used to kill Haman. It ended up that Haman had to kill himself. And he was hung from the very thing that he built to kill someone else. That's how he does it. He will take the very thing you're trying to do to bring destruction upon someone else to destroy you. And you and I have to be careful. We have to be careful with that. Because the thief will use all of these things against us to bring us down into destruction. Because his goal, remember, his goal is to steal, kill, and destroy. He said, that's where he's trying to get us to. He said, I want to kill you, steal you, and destroy. And finally he says, listen, but the shepherd, he says, hey, but the shepherd, here he comes. He says, the shepherd comes. In the text it says right here, he says, but I came, right there, that you may have life. In other words, I love it because it's in the arrows, meaning when the thief comes, he's saying the shepherd comes at the exact same time. I love that. Because what he's saying is, at the moment the thief decides to show up in your life at different points in your life where he decides to show up, he's saying at that same time, the shepherd's going to show up in those different points in your life. See, so if you're in God and you have a faith and belief in God, he's saying what happens is when the thief decides to show up for the purpose of steal, kill, and destroy, the shepherd says, I show up at the same time. I'm going to show up too. And I'm going to step in and be your defender when no one else will. The shepherd says, when he's coming to try to steal, kill, and destroy, he says, but I came for the same purpose, but my purpose would be to bring life. And he says, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to try to take anything from you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep everything with you. And not only that, I'm going to try to protect and provide for you in other ways that they would not. He's saying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to somehow bring life into you. I'm going to bring energy into you. I'm going to bring exuberance into you. I'm going to bring vitality into you. I'm going to bring all of these things that you need to keep going. He says, I'm going to bring that into your life. I'm going to bring something that you never, ever had before. And I know, a lot of times we think life is things that we do. When we buy a car, somehow we're living. If we buy a house, somehow we're living. If we get to have our money blow up and go up, if we, live it our way, if it's our prerogative, we somehow ways think that is life. Somehow we think that if we get to drink our Ciroc, spend our money, do our thing, then that somehow is life. But I'm telling you, that's not life. You have not lived until you come to know God. You have not had life. You have not even come close to life. Matter of fact, life does not even begin until you know God. Until you have a relationship with God, life doesn't even start for you. Until you decide to use your gifts and talents for the service of God, you ain't even started living. I would say you ain't even started life yet. You still an infant. You hadn't even experienced what God can do. Because when you experience what life with God, God can do so many things in your life that are just so incredible and you cannot even fathom or imagine. This is why you can't even imagine what God can do. Because when he comes into your life, God changes it for the better. God changes your life in a way that you can't even dream of. You all of a sudden have visions that you never thought about. Think of the impossible that you never could do. Why? Because God is now giving you an energy, a vitality, an exuberance, something that you can't even imagine that you could even ever have or do. You'll find yourself in places that you never even thought about. You'll find yourself sitting among kings and queens and presidents and CEOs. Why? Because God will put you there. When he decides to work in your life and you decide to have a life with God, it is totally different. And he's telling them, he said, listen, I'm not coming to take anything from you. No, I'm not trying to destroy you. No, I'm trying to build you up. I'm trying to lift you up. I'm trying to give you something that you've never done before, give you something that you never had before, put you in pastures you never seen, guide you to waters you never knew were there. He said, I'm trying to do something different in your life. He said, I'm the shepherd. And he said, at the same time when the thief comes, he says, I come so that you would have life. And then he said, your life will be abundant. He says, greater than anything that you could even dream of. You think life is great now. Imagine what it is when God moves in and steps in. And all of a sudden you start to think, I can't outgive God. Imagine what life would be like then. You all of a sudden giving more than you even imagine or dream. You giving paychecks or salaries. You giving that away. Why? Because God is now working in your life in a way that you figured was unimaginable. If you asked me, would I ever give as much as I gave today? I would say no, never, thought in my mind. But guess what? God has allowed it because he said, I can do something with you that you can't do with yourself. I have pockets that never run dry, that never fail. God is the one that will protect you and provide for you in any situation you're in and guide you to wherever you need to go. Why? Because God has already thought that thing out and thought that thing through. He knows exactly where to take you and where you need to go as the shepherd. He knows exactly where to lead you. And if you don't believe, watch this. Watch it. I'm going to bring up this guy right now by the name of Moses. This guy was on the backside of a desert looking at a burning bush. And God says, I need you on the backside of a desert looking at a burning bush. I need you to go to Egypt. That don't make sense to me, God. Why you need me to go to Egypt? He said, don't you worry about that, Moses. I've thought that thing out, and I've thought that thing through. You just go on down to Egypt because that's where I need you to go. And as his sheep, all he needs to do, follow the shepherd. The shepherd says, you go to Egypt. He shows up in Egypt. And he says, what am I to do in here in Egypt? Moses talking. He said, don't you worry about that, Moses. I've thought that thing out. I thought that thing through. You get these people out of Egypt, and you take them out of Egypt and you move on. And he's leaving Egypt and he's thinking he's done with Egypt. But the thief, Pharaoh, says, no, no, no. I'm coming for a purpose, Moses. I'm coming to steal. Oh, take back our gold, kill, get rid of you, and destroy everything you took. I'm going to bring it back to Egypt because I didn't want you to go with it. And Moses had to go say, God, I know you told me to go to Egypt. I know you told me to show up. I know you told me to tell the people to go. But you got us walking out here in this desert. Where are we to go at the edge of this Red Sea? He says, Moses, I already thought that thing out, and I thought that thing through. He says, Moses, what you need to do is you need to lift up your staff. Oh, there it is. Moses, do it like a sheep. Just follow God. Lift up your staff. And guess what? The water's parted. Moses, you can now walk across. Why? Because I already thought that thing out, see, and thought that thing through. Moses passed through the water. Moses get to the other side. Moses said, now, God, what are we going to eat? He said, don't worry about that. I'll make manna in the morning, Moses, because I've already thought that thing out, and I thought that thing through. And then he said, well, where are we going to drink, Moses? Moses said, where are we going to drink, God? He said, don't you worry about that, Moses. I got a rock over here because I already thought that thing out, thought that thing through. Moses said, well, we've been walking out here for days and there's been no food. I need some meat. He says, well, I'll make quail fall from the sky. Moses, don't you worry. Why? Because I already thought that thing out and I thought that thing through. He said, Moses, you keep marching in the desert. He says, you're going to have us marching around for 40 years. Don't you worry about that, Moses. Why? I thought that thing out, and I thought that thing through. So now, listen to here. When God shows up in your life, he's going to take you where you need to go. Why? Because God has already thought that thing out and thought that thing through. God is going to provide for you when you need it. Why? Because God has thought that thing out and thought that thing through. And so God is going to give you the waters where you need to have them. Why? Because God thought that thing out and he thought that thing through. So when God gives you a job, it's going to be the one you need to have. Why? Because God thought that thing out and he thought that thing through. So when you need the person you need to find in your life, why? Because God thought that thing out and he thought that thing through. And God has already set up everything in your life. Why? Because he's already thought it out and he's already thought it through. God is your shepherd. Allow him to lead. That's what he's telling you. If you believe it, say amen. As the praise and worship come, listen. You got to believe that God has already thought that thing out and thought that thing through. And see, you and I as sheep, we got to be able to understand that God has set up everything already, and we've just got to follow. Quit trying to do your own thing. Quit trying to find your own way. Let God lead. He's the shepherd. He says, I'm a good shepherd. There's none better than me. That's what he says. So if you would stand to your feet. If you don't know Christ and the pardon of sin, hey, first we want you to believe and be baptized. You got to believe Christ. As the praise and worship team come and as the prayer team come, we want to make prayer available to you. You can come and pray with any one of these in the front here. We want to pray for you and with you. And you may be saying, listen, I need to let the shepherd lead me. I'm tired of what the thief has been doing in my life. I want the shepherd in my life. Say, I'm tired. And so I know you got to let God think it out because he's already done it. He's already thought it through. So if you don't know Christ and the pardon of sin, we want to make that available to you. And all you have to do is come down and say, hey, I want to accept Christ in my life. Believe and be baptized. You say, well, I've already done that. Well, then join and serve. Join and serve. So I need to join a local body. I need to serve with my gifts and talents. Because I want to live life more abundantly.
Walk on through temptation.
Say, I'm beyond that. I want to now say I'm ready to give. That's you. Hey, make that commitment today. So I'm ready to move and do something different. God will move you. He will lead you to the water. He will lead you to the food. He will lead you to the green grass. God will lead you if you allow him. He's the shepherd. He's already thought that thing out, and he's thought it through. If there's one, we'd like to pray for you, pray with you, pray over you.
Who gives you power?
Jesus,
Who
I can't
gives you
walk
joy?
for you, but I can walk with you. If there's one,
Nobody but you.
oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Jesus,
Jesus,
there's power in the name.
Jesus,
There's salvation in the name.
Jesus.